Who's a fan of Captain America? Okay, how about Eric from that old 80s D&D cartoon? Actually, Eric was kind of a whiny jerk. But you know what I mean. The fantasy of a shield-only character. Wouldn't it be cool if we eschewed traditional weapons to just smack our enemies around with our shield and our fists only? Shoving, bashing, and protecting our allies while we're at it? Focused, in other words, on using improvised weapons only. Well, that is the character that we're going to build today, and I'm super excited to share it with you. So welcome to D4. Hey everybody. So here at D4, every week I take a deep dive into character builds for my favorite role-playing games. I like to crunch numbers about them. I like to theorycraft about them, not so that I can tell you the right way or the best way to play a character, but to explore one potential way to build something in the hopes of creating a character that's both really fun, but also really powerful to play. So if you also enjoy creating characters for your favorite role-playing games, or if you just really like theory crafting, or if you're just looking for tips or ideas on how to build something you're thinking about playing, then welcome home. This is where you belong, and I am really glad you're here, so thank you for watching. My name's Colby. So one of the most frequent requests I've gotten from viewers is to do a build that focuses on making a Captain America-like character, right? Someone who uses their shield for both defense and offense. I took a stab at it back under the 2014 rules, see the results here, and I think it turned out okay. They brought a decent amount of martial control and tanky, like bruiseriness to the table, but in the end were more of a grappler than anything, and their damage was worse than almost any 2014 damage-focused build I ever did. But what about in 2024? Things have improved dramatically for shield lovers. The Shield Master feat is way better. Tavern Brawler is easy to come by, and there are some other feats and racial and class features that can give us a boost too. And so I think the time has finally come to honor all of those requests to make an updated Shield Master and see just how good we can make it with the new rules. But before we jump in, let me say a few words about the big challenges with attempting to build around using a shield as a weapon and being an improvised weapon user in general. First, let's just read the 2024 rules on improvised weapons so we're all on the same page. In the Player's Handbook glossary, we read, an improvised weapon is an object wielded as a makeshift weapon, such as broken glass, a table leg, or a frying pan, or I'll add a shield. A simple or martial weapon also counts as an improvised weapon if it's wielded in a way contrary to its design. If you use a ranged weapon to make a melee attack or throw a melee weapon that lacks the thrown property, the weapon counts as an improvised weapon. An improvised weapon follows the rules below. Don't add your proficiency bonus to attack rolls with an improvised weapon. That kind of stinks, but we'll have a way around it. On a hit, the weapon deals 1d4 damage of a type the DM thinks is appropriate for the object. In a shield's case, I have to believe that's going to be bludgeoning damage. And then if you throw the weapon, it has a normal range of 20 feet and a long range of 60 feet. Finally, if an improvised weapon resembles a simple or martial weapon, the DM may say it functions as that weapon and use that weapon's rules. For example, the DM could treat a table leg as a club. So, the biggest drawback to using improvised weapons, I think, is that improvised weapons aren't technically considered to be either simple or martial weapons, right? As such, they don't have official weapon properties that your DM doesn't assign, like the heavy property, or reach, or even the thrown property, right? Though it says you can throw them, you wouldn't, rules as written, be able to take the thrown weapon fighting style and apply it because that only works on weapons with the thrown property, for example. Or put the returning weapon Artificer Infusion on it, right? How can I be Captain America in D&D if I can't throw my shield and have it come back to me every time? There are just a ton of things that only work on weapons with specific properties or on weapons that are specifically simple or martial weapons, right? Improvised weapons don't count as monk weapons for martial arts purposes, for example. In 2024, the most glaring omission is, of course, that improvised weapons don't have any associated weapon masteries either, and that's a huge bummer, because weapon masteries are one of the coolest things to come out of 2024 rules, right? But you know what? None of those drawbacks are going to stop me from trying to build the best shield as an improvised weapon user that I can. So, for the build today, I'm giving myself just one rule. No conventional weapons allowed. We're going to use our shield as an improvised weapon for smacking and bashing, though I will allow for unarmed strikes if we really wanted. Truly, any improvised weapon would work. It doesn't necessarily have to be a shield for the build, though we'll want to have one equipped at the very least. So yeah, just no swords or axes or hammers or anything. With a shield in one hand and nothing in the other, just how much damage could we do every round if we really tried to build around it? Okay, ready to build it? I proudly present D&D episode number 219, Shieldmaster 2.0, the Eric, Captain Eric, bruh. The Board and Board, the Boardbarian, the Shield Wielder, the Shield Wall, the Brawling Bulwark. Thanks as always to the Discord members for the fantastic suggestions. I think today I'm going to go with the one given by Vader Dog, Captain America Strike Through Faerûn. Yeah, I hope Nox can figure out how to do strike through in the floating text that just came up down below. Big thanks to my good friend Randall Hampton for the fantastic artwork that he put together for the build today. I love this. I swear he just gets better every week. I mean, he really kind of captured what feels to me like a Captain Faerûn here, yeah? If you'd be interested in checking out the other stuff that Randall does, or even potentially reaching out to see if you could commission him to do some art for your build or even your entire party, I'll put links in the video description as always on how to do so. But first, welcome back to my room. So, you know what my favorite thing about today's sponsor, Helix, is right now? How cool I stay on their mattresses. It's July, as I'm recording this, the hottest month of the year where I live. And for maybe the first time in my life, this July, I'm not waking up in the middle of the night sweating all the time. I love this mattress. It's the best mattress I've ever owned, not only because it helps me stay cool at night, even during the hot summer months, but as my youngest is wont to say at bedtime every night,
your bed is so comfy.
Every night. Seriously. Get out of here. And the thing is, my Helix mattress is specially tailored for me, and yours would be tailored for you, because with Helix, before you order, you take a sleep quiz to help you figure out your body type and sleep preferences so that you can get the perfect mattress for you. I am a side sleeper, and I tend to prefer a softer mattress. Like I've said, I tend to sleep hot, so I took the test before I ordered this, and I got matched up with what is a Sunset Luxe mattress with a Glaciotex cooling cover. But there are 20 unique mattresses that they offer, including the Luxe and Ultra Premium Elite collections, the Helix Plus for big and tall builds, and even Helix Kids. And as I showed you guys last time that they sponsored a video, they have these great mattress toppers now too. We've got one in our guest room downstairs, and I can't get my kids to just sleep in their own freaking bedrooms right now because they always want to sleep on it instead. The toppers are a great way to get some additional fantastic comfort and quality, and yes, even Glaciotex cooling options without going all out for the full mattress. Highly recommended. So, right now, Helix is running a sale that's giving 27% off of everything on their site. Yes, everything. So click on the URL that I've put in the video description and the pinned comment if you're interested to enjoy those savings, and let them know I sent you, if you would. Thank you. And yeah, as always, they have a 100-night sleep trial, so you've got more than 3 months to test it out, see if you like it, but if you don't, which frankly I have a hard time imagining, but still, send it back, you get a full refund. Their mattresses have a 10-year warranty, and they even have financing options and flexible payment plans. So there's really nothing to lose here, guys, but so much to gain. Oh, and shipping is free in the US. It comes rolled up in a box. It's super easy to set up. So no more delays. And just check out what you've been missing with Helix. Okay, let's get back to the build. At level 1, for our starting class, yes, we are going to go Barbarian. Fighter might fit the archetype a little bit better, and don't worry, we will get there, but I think at early levels, you just get so much from Barbarian that on what's going to basically be a pure martial character with maybe one little optional exception, starting Barbarian is just the way to go. I'm going to say let's go Goliath, though I don't see this as necessary in any way. I just really like the ability to eke out a little extra damage out of our attacks via our giant ancestry, for which I think I'd take Fire for this build, letting us proficiency bonus times per day, add a d10 of fire damage to an attack that we land. I'd go Hill Giant instead if I didn't have a reliable way to knock enemies prone already, but we will, so hang tight. As for our background, I'm going to say take an old or custom one as always, but if we can't, Sailor should work fine. Primarily because that gives us the main origin feat that we want, which, yes, is Tavern Brawler. It's got a lot of changes for 2024. First up, the fact that we can get it right at level 1 is pretty nice, though it's no longer a half feat. It does, however, let us add our proficiency bonus to attacks we make with improvised weapons when we otherwise couldn't, right, as we read earlier. And that's the main reason we're here. It also improves our unarmed strike damage to a d4 plus strength instead of just 1 plus strength. And so, if you wanted to punch instead of bonk with a shield, you're going to get the same damage, right? It also lets us re-roll damage for unarmed strikes if we roll a 1, so I guess technically you might get a little more mileage out of punching, at least for now. And finally says that if we hit a creature with an unarmed strike as part of the attack action on our turn, we can deal damage and push them 5 feet away. Again, nice. Makes me want to unarmed strike more than what we're probably going to be doing, but hey, it's a good option to have. As for our ability scores, I assume we're going the point by method as always and say let's take a 15 strength plus 2, a 13 constitution plus 1, a 14 dexterity, and then a 13 charisma. That charisma is for a little multi-class dip I'm going to take, but you don't have to do that. We'll discuss more when we get there, but in that case, if you don't, you could dump charisma and put more points into constitution if you wanted, or sure, wisdom or whatever. For our starting equipment, I'm going to say let's go scale mail and a shield. Pretty straightforward. We don't need much. We don't need a weapon, right? But then as a barbarian one, we get rage. First up, of course, one of the barbarian's best and strongest features, telling us that twice per day and then recovering 1 use of it on a short rest. If we're not wearing heavy armor, as a bonus action, we can go into a state of rage for 10 minutes, so long as we make an attack, force a saving throw, or just use a bonus action to keep it going every round. While raging, we have resistance to all bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, which is awesome. That's most of the damage we'll be subjected to in-game. We have advantage on strength checks and saves ourselves, and deal an extra 2 damage on all of our attacks that use strength. Unfortunately, we cannot concentrate on or cast spells while raging, but that's okay. We'll work around it. We also get weapon masteries at Barbarian 1, but alas, as we've discussed, improvised weapons don't get any weapon masteries by default. Now, if I were wanting to play this character in-game, I would 100% talk to my DM beforehand in a session 0 and try to convince them to give me a mastery for my shield. I have to believe that the vast majority of DMs would allow it. If you came to them with this concept and were willing to kind of really hamper your own offensive abilities in the name of sticking to your character concept, right? The question is, if they said yes, what would be the most appropriate mastery for a shield? I think I'd probably say Sap, which gives disadvantage on the enemy's next attack that you hit with Sap, since you're kind of dazing them when you bash them with your shield, I think. But let me know if you've got a better idea in the comments. I can see Topple or Push or, I don't know, maybe others. But yeah, rules as written, we don't get it. That's a bummer. Also, as a Barbarian 1, we get unarmored defense, but we don't want to go naked here. Medium armor is mucho mejor. Okay, time for the member shout out. Don't talk about being naked. Don't talk about being naked. Speaking of something being mucho mejor, let me give a quick shout out to all of my channel members and patrons. You guys are los mejores. Thank you so much for everything that you do for me and for this channel. I couldn't do this without you. If you're not a member or a patron, I'd love it if you'd consider becoming one. There's a little join button down below, or you can check for the Patreon link in the video description. Either way, it'll tell you about the little perks that you can get for being a member. Those include, access to the library of write-ups that I do for all of my builds to help you recreate the build yourself a little more easily, access to the community Discord server, and access to the live monthly Q&A hangout sessions that we do. If you can't or aren't interested in supporting the channel in this way, that's okay. Being here, watching, liking, subscribing, all of those things are also great ways to support the channel, so thank you. At level 2, Barbarians get Danger Sense, which gives us advantage on dexterity saving throws, much appreciated. And then my favorite Barbarian feature, Reckless Attack, which says that during our first attack roll on our turn, we can throw caution to the wind and attack recklessly, gaining advantage on all of our strength-based attacks until the start of our next turn, with the teeny-weeny penalty of giving enemies disadvantage on their attacks against us, but totally worth. Especially since I do kind of envision this character as being kind of a tank-like. They're going to be pretty durable with a decent armor class and, resistance to most damage. So yeah, being a frontliner, encouraging enemies to attack you instead of your allies is kind of part of what we're going for here. So use that reckless attack. At level 3, we get Primal Knowledge, which says that while raging, we can use Strength instead of the usual ability score for our Acrobatics, Intimidation, Perception, Stealth, or Survival skill checks. Some pretty great utility there, and a nice use of Rage out of combat if we've got extra uses to spare. But then we also get our Barbarian subclass. And for today, I think I'm going to say let's go Berserker. That said, my original plan was to go Beast Barbarian like I did for that first Shieldmaster build. Beast Barbarian would do more overall damage because they get to make more attacks with their claws, right? But the problem was you were just better off using your claws for all of your attacks and never really using your shield. And so then it just kind of became a Beast Barbarian with a shield and not really like a Shieldmaster improvised weapon user, It just didn't feel like it fit the concept very well. Oh, and shout out to 3 Otters in a Trench Coat from the Discord server for their suggestion for the build when it was going to be that version, Jean-Claude Van Damme. I was totally going to go with that until I scrapped the Beast Barbarian idea. Also, I was strongly tempted to go with the Giant Barbarian for a subclass, not only because I'm a Goliath, so it just makes sense, but also because at level 6, Giant Barbarians get the Elemental Cleaver feature, which would add extra damage to our shield, yes, but also, importantly, officially grant it the Throne property, and above all, would cause it to return to our hand after we threw it. If I were really trying to lean into the whole like Captain America in D&D thing, I would 100% go this route. But Berserker is just a little bit better damage-wise, especially at this level since it gives us the Frenzy feature, which says that when we rage, we deal extra damage to our first target per turn, so long as we're making a strength-based attack equal to a number of d6s equal to our rage bonus, so 2d6 extra damage, right, once per turn. Not bad at all. And yeah, it doesn't have to specifically be a simple or martial weapon or anything, so improvised weapons work great here. For the record, I guess I'll mention that Zealot would also be a fine alternative here. They do just slightly less damage, but also get a nice self-heal, and maybe above all, feels like a better fit for like a Captain America archetype, I think, right? Zealous, maybe not for like a god, but for your country. And actually, it would pair nicely with a multi-class dip we're going to take in a few levels too. Anyways, I'm just going to assume Berserker, but there are lots of great options. At level 4, we get our first general feat, and of course we're going to take Shieldmaster. I just really love this feat under the 2024 rules. It's now a half feat, bumping our strength to 18, nice. Gives us a nice defensive feature in that we can use our reaction when hit by a fireball or something like it that requires a dex save to take half damage, right? To interpose our shield between us and the blast, taking 0 damage if we succeed. So it's kind of like half of the evasion feature. But then, best of all for this build, I think, if we attack with a melee weapon as part of the attack action, it doesn't specify a simple or a martial weapon, right? Improvised weapons or melee weapons, so we should be good here. If we hit, we can, once on our turn, just force the enemy to make a strength save or be either pushed 5 feet away from us or knocked prone. That used to require a bonus action in the old version of the feat, and freeing up our bonus action makes me super happy. It makes me feel a little less bad for not having weapon masteries. Now it's kind of like we've got both push and topple, and we get to choose which one we're using every round. I'm going to assume that we'd just be knocking them prone every turn. We don't need it for advantage since we've got reckless attack, right? But our other melee allies might really enjoy the benefit. And then it does give, our enemies disadvantage on their attacks if they're prone until they stand up, which would cost them half their move speed. It's just a really nice debuff. But sure, push them 5 feet instead if you've got a really good reason for doing so, right? Don't forget, if you've got a really good reason for doing so, you can push them with an unarmed strike as well, thanks to Tavern Brawler. So you could get a couple of little pushes in there. Okay, at level 5, barbarians get fast movement, giving us 10 more feet of movement if we're not wearing heavy armor. So as a Goliath, actually, that would mean 45 feet of movement. Dang, I feel like a monk. And then, of course, we get extra attack. So now we could, on our turn, bash them a couple of times with our shield, right? Or, knock them with our shield once and make an unarmed strike for the second attack if we wanted. Potentially grappling, even, if we wanted to be a grappler. But at level 6, with extra attack secured, I think it's probably time to leave Barbarian behind, unless you go Path of the Giant. In that case, for sure, stay Barbarian for one more level, right? Or sure, I mean, the Berserker subclass at level 6 is pretty good, right? It lets you be immune to Charmed or Frightened while raging. Worth considering. Doesn't do much for our damage on the spreadsheet, and so yeah, I'm going another route, but it's not fighter yet, I don't think. Instead, I think I would want to take just a teensy-weensy Paladin dip. Not so that I could smite, no, remember we can't cast spells while raging, and Divine Smite, alas, is considered casting a spell now. I is so angry. But guess what spell we could get at Pally 1 that adds damage to all of our attacks and doesn't require concentration? That's right, Divine Favor. And since we get spells at Pally 1 now, and Divine Favor can be cast as a bonus action and adds a d4 to all of our weapon attacks for 1 minute, yeah, let's grab it. And hey, being able to grab Cure Wounds for some out of combat healing is pretty nice too if you really need it. Not to mention the healing that we get from the Lay on Hands feature here that gives us 1 point per Pally level per day that we can use with just a bonus action now to heal 1 hit point per point spent, right? It's a nice little bring an ally back from the brink of death during combat triage heal that is not a spell, so can be used while raging. I'd just spend them 1 point at a time if I were you, FYI. And yeah, you can use all 5 of those points to cure poison if you've got them and you really need it. But then we also get 2 more weapon masteries at Pally 1. Whap, whap. Gosh dang it. 4 weapon masteries, and we don't benefit from any of them on this build. Maybe you could convince your DM to give your fists a weapon mastery now? Although we kind of get that with Tavern Brawler, I suppose. At level 6, it is time for our first damage report. So, what does combat look like for us? As usual, for barbarians, it's pretty simple. Let's assume that on round 1, we cast Divine Favor as a bonus action and then go make 2 attacks with our shield, toppling or pushing an enemy of our choice with our shield bash. Not raging on round 1 kinda sucks, but we can't cast a spell once we've started raging, so I'll save that for round 2. At that point though, yeah, we'd rage, and then from that point forward, both of our attacks every round would do a d4 of damage for the shield or, improvised weapon if we're using that instead, or for that matter, our unarmed strike, plus a d4 from Divine Favor, plus 2 for rage, plus 4 for strength, plus 2d6 on the first attack we land. And I mean, sure, we've got 3 uses of our Fire's Burn Goliath feature, right? So we'll throw one of those once per turn from round 2 on for a total of 1d10 plus 2d6 plus 2d4 plus 6 if everything hits. And it probably will, because we've got on-demand advantage. And one nice thing about knocking enemies prone with Shield Bash, if we have advantage on our attacks, otherwise, right, we don't need to attack recklessly. So that will be nice for our survivability. Alas, though, unlike in BG3, take a drink, we do have to decide right at the beginning of our turn if we're going to attack recklessly or not. So we can't wait to see if we hit and knock them prone before deciding to turn it on, right? Ah well. We'll have advantage either way, and hopefully so will our melee allies. Averaged then over a 4-round combat encounter, we would do against enemies with a 10 armor class, 32 damage per round, and against a 15 AC, 30 DPR. And okay, that's not great, but admittedly about where I thought it would be. Compared to other DPR builds that I've done to date, that puts us near the bottom end of tier 3 at this level. And yes, by the way, I've updated my spreadsheets to include a 3rd tier now for damage builds. It was just getting a little too crowded with only 2 tiers. Check the video description for links to those, as always. But yeah, my hope really was just to stay even with the new baseline. I can do this all day build right up there, right? In true Captain America fashion, I suppose. And we're just a little bit behind that build at this level, so it doesn't feel too bad considering the way that we've intentionally restricted ourselves in the name of character concept, right? Oh, and for the record, I should mention, if you wanted to go Beast Barbarian here instead of Berserker, and were okay just making claw attacks and then smacking with your shield thanks to the Shield Master feat, you'd actually be 4 or 5 points of damage higher on average, and that would put you above the all-day build, which is cool. But no. The point here was to build around using the shield as an improvised weapon, so that's what we're doing. Here's hoping that your DM will give you some love, and even, probably the number one thing I might ask for actually on this build from my DM would be to have like a +1 shield considered to be +1 to hit and damage as an improvised weapon too, or something. I bet they would. I bet most of them would. Can't hurt to ask. Okay, regardless, we're in a great spot at the moment. Decent damage, fantastic survivability, and even a little bit of support potential to boot. So where do we go from here? Well, at level 7, I think it's probably one of two routes. Either we just keep going with Barbarian. Barbarians did get some nice love in 2024. They scale better now than they used to. Plus, the level 6, and especially for damage purposes, Berserker Barbarian features are pretty nice, letting us get a reaction attack with some high consistency. Maybe coupled with the Sentinel feat, we'd almost always get a reaction attack. But I think we just get a little more mileage out of switching to fighter here instead, depending on the level that we're looking at least. And so that's the route that I'm going to take us now. And I suppose it's worth mentioning that if I were playing this character and starting them at like maybe this level or higher, I would go Fighter 5 first, then Barbarian to 3 or 4, and then Paladin 1, and then Fighter the rest of the way. That would let me get to higher fighter levels faster, which would be great, and still let us get all of the best and most important things from Barbarian. But the way we went with Barbarian to 5, then Pally 1 looks a lot better at level 6 than the fighter route. And as always, I'm interested in like making this character as good as I can, like from the get-go, right? Okay, at Fighter 1 then, we get a fighting style. And I mean, if we were going for damage above all, then sure, dueling is the way to go here since it would let us add 2 damage to all of our shield smacks. That said, yeah, if I'm playing this character in game and I'm trying to build a character who's amazing with their shield, I'm probably taking the protection fighting style, right? So that I can interpose that shield between an ally and an attack that they're taking, causing that attack and all others until my turn to have disadvantage. That's, I think, what a true shield master would do. But for number crunching, sure, I'll assume the dueling fighting style. At Fighter 1, we also get Second Wind that lets us heal ourselves for a d10 plus our fighter level as a bonus action, twice per day, and then recovering 1 use on a short rest. And then we get more weapon masteries. Maybe we should just take Rogue and Ranger levels just to get as many weapon masteries as possible that we'll never use. That's fine, because guess what? At level 8, we'd be a Fighter 2, and that means we get Action Surge, and Action Surge is one of the best abilities in game, letting us, once per short rest, take 2 actions instead of 1, so sure, when I crunch numbers, I'll assume we're using this on round 2, like after we've got all of our self buffs going, right, for maximum shield smashing damage. We also get Tactical Mind, which lets us burn a use of our Second Wind to add a d10 to a failed ability check. And the use of it isn't even spent if we like still fail the check, right? Coupled with our Barbarian's Primal Knowledge, we've got some really solid utility on this character now, which is much appreciated. At level 9, we would be a Fighter 3, and that means we get our Fighter subclass. And while there are plenty that would work well for the build, I think Battlemaster is the best and my favorite. I mean, I definitely see this character as like your Battlefield Commander type, right? Not too dissimilar to that Battlefield Commander build that I did a long time ago. We are here to knock bad guys around, sure, but our main role is maybe more of like a leader who's trying to make sure that our squad is performing at like peak capacity. So you're knocking a baddie to the floor so that your melee specialist can take them out, or pushing them into your spellcaster's AoE, right? Then protecting your squishiest ally from harm with your shield, patching up the wounded when they go down, and now like shouting orders, directing teammates, bolstering resolve. It just feels right. Plus, it can bring a decent little damage bump too. So as a Battle Master, we first up get Student of War, which just gives us proficiency in an artisan's tool of our choice and an extra skill proficiency. And then we get Combat Superiority, which gives us 4 superiority dice per short rest, D8s for now, that we can spend on one of the 3 maneuvers that we get to pick now. And man, are there a lot that I would love to have on this build especially. I think for damage, I would grab Menacing Attack, which lets us add that superiority die in damage when we hit with an attack, and then forces the enemy to make a wisdom save or be frightened of us until the end of our next turn. That will mean disadvantage on their attacks and keep them from moving closer to us, which, I mean, if we've got allies standing behind you, as any shield master should, then that'll be a great way to help keep them safe, right? Other than that, though, I'd probably focus on taking stuff that would help make my team better. Goading Attack is a nice single target soft taunt if we really wanted to lean into the tanking thing. Rally would give temporary hit points, and it feels super appropriate thematically. Commander Strike is a great way to replace one of your own attacks that admittedly doesn't do a ton of damage with an ally's attack. They use their reaction, so this is especially good if you've got a rogue in your party, right? Letting them get their sneak attack damage a second time per round, right? Those would be my top considerations, personally, but, pick your favorites. At level 9, it is time for our next damage report. Since last check, we've added 2 damage per shield bash from the dueling fighting style, action surge once per combat encounter for a little more damage on average, and then I'll just assume we're spending 1 superiority die per turn for an extra D8 of damage from Menacing Attack or something like it. It's probably even more total damage if you're using Commander Strike to give a bonus attack to a harder hitting ally, right? But I can't know that, so I'll just add the D8. We've also gained some nice utility, defensive, and support capabilities to boot, but averaged over a 4-round combat encounter now, we would against a 10 AC do 49 damage per round, and against a 16 AC it would be 46 DPR. And hey, good news. Compared to other sustained damage builds that I've done to date, we're beating out a few of them this time, including that all-day baseline build, so yeah, that feels pretty great. And yeah, again, we're potentially a pretty fun battlefield commander, and all of our damage is done with an improvised weapon. That's cool. Let's see what's next. At level 10, we would be a fighter 4, and that means we get another feat. And, thanks to the fact that we're going to get yet another feat in just a couple of levels, yay fighters, I think it makes sense to take a half feat now and then another one then, right? The question is, which feat? Man, there are so many great half-strength feats available in 2024. My general overall favorite might be Mage Slayer, so I think that's the way to go here. I just love this feat more every day. +1 to strength, or dexterity of course, disadvantage on concentration checks every time you damage an enemy concentrating on something, which, to be fair, may not be a ton depending on your table and campaign, but really great when you need it. And then you can automatically save on an intelligence, charisma, or wisdom saving throw when you fail it. Once per short rest. Legendary resistance, right? And our mental saves are not great, not even close. So this feels like a no-brainer to me personally, maybe unless we went Berserker 6, right? To be immune to Charmed and Frightened, that would get rid of a lot of those mental saving throws. Not all of them though, so this still might be worth it. At level 11, we'd be a fighter 5, and that means we get extra attack, sadly. Yeah, I hate redundancy on builds and very rarely take multiclassing to a point where I get extra attack twice, right? But I still think this is the better route for the build if we're going high level. But again, starting fighter and only going to Barb 3 or 4 makes the most sense, if we're going to start the character at level 7 or higher. We also get Tactical Shift, which says that when we use Second Wind with a bonus action, meaning for now when we use it to regain hit points, we can also just move up to half our speed without provoking opportunity attacks. That's so good. I love the buffs that Second Wind got in the 2024 rules. At level 12, we would be a fighter 6, and that means, yes, we get another feat, and like I said, we want another half feat here to get our strength to 20, but I think the decision is a little tougher now. Crusher would be nice. Our shield bash should do bludgeoning damage, as we've talked about, right? Technically the DM gets to decide the damage type of an improvised weapon, but I can't imagine a shield bash being anything but bludgeoning. Unless maybe you have a spike on your shield or something, I guess. Anyways, Sentinel is always nice, especially if you're planning on trying to stand next to an ally often for reliable opportunity attacks. I really like Grappler if you want to do a lot of grappling with this build. Not a bad idea at all. Not one I've talked about too much, but yeah, you're not topping the damage charts and are here largely to hurt stuff, sure, but to make your team better mostly, right? So being able to grapple and punch at the same time via this feat would be great. Being able to drag them around more easily would be great. In the interest of better damage, I suppose I'll assume we're going Charger. It's by no means a no-brainer, but the main feature, being able to do either an extra d8 of damage or push a target 10 feet if they're no more than one size larger than us, feels pretty cool here. For one thing, something I haven't mentioned, ever since level 5 as a Goliath, we can grow to large size if we want. So getting a 10-foot push, no save, on a target that's huge or smaller would be pretty awesome if you really need it, and we'd be able to do that with this feat. And considering that your Shieldmaster Bash can knock prone or push, I mean, if we decided to push with it and then charged and pushed, that's potentially 15 feet of pushing. I'll assume that we're getting the d8 of extra damage, of course, because I don't know what your battlefield's like and if there's any good reason to push them, like through a spike growth or off a cliff or something. And I mean, sure, maybe it's overgenerous to assume that we're moving 10 feet towards an enemy every turn before attacking them, since it might often mean like backing up from an enemy to run at them, and that could mean taking an opportunity attack, but I don't know. If we do it at the beginning of our turn, we're not recklessly attacking yet, so the attack against us doesn't have advantage. We've got a solid AC, we're probably raging. I think I'm just okay making this assumption. Eat up an enemy reaction. Worst case scenario, so that our friends can move more freely, right? Sure. And we've got 45 feet of movement, so this shouldn't be a problem on that front. Feel free to take a different feat if you want. At level 13, we would be a Fighter 7, and we get, as a Battle Master, Know Your Enemy. This is a pretty cool utility feature and is so much better in 2024. We can now simply use a bonus action to know any resistances, vulnerabilities, or immunities of a creature within 30 feet. So clutch when it will make a big difference in combat. True, this is something that will be a lot more useful at the beginning of combat than later on, which could mean then foregoing, most likely, divine intervention, right, at the beginning of combat. But hey, I'd think most of the time you could use this feature before combat started, unless you were just totally like surprised by the enemies in the encounter. You can only do it once per long rest for free, but you can spend a superiority die to do it more. Very cool. We also get 2 more maneuvers here, and I'm just gonna say, PYF, pick your favorites, but I love getting more. There's so many good ones, especially again for like a battlefield commander type. And we also get 1 more superiority die now. There's 5 per short rest, and so sure, I'll assume we're blowing an extra 1 like on round 2 when we've got all of our self buffs going and we're action surging. It's kind of our burst round, right? Speaking of, yes, it's time for our next damage report. Since last check, we have capped our strength score, picked up a small 1d8 per round bump from Charger, and an even smaller bump from like 1 more superiority die per combat encounter, right? And I guess, sure, 1 more d10 from Fire Goliath on 1 turn, since our proficiency bonus is 5 now. And we're not restricted to only using that once per turn. We could do it on both of our attacks if we wanted. We need all the help that we can get, right? And then gained a ton of utility, defense, and support capability as well. So, averaged over 4 rounds now, we would do against a 10 AC 60 damage per round, and against a 17, it would be 57 DPR. And while we've seen a bit of an increase, we are back near the bottom of tier 3 again when compared to other damage dealers at this level, dropping just below that all-day build even, and that makes me a little sad. But again, for a character that's doing as much as we are to make our teammates' lives better, that's respectable. And cool. Don't forget cool. All right, let's see what happens for us down the home stretch. At level 14, we would be a Fighter 8, and that means we get yet another feat. And I think I'm probably taking Resilient Wisdom here. Mage Slayer really helps those wisdom saves. If we had gone Berserker 6 especially, right, then I might not really need this, but it will still be really nice to be able to add our proficiency bonus to our wisdom saves, make them more reliable in general, just in case we need to make more than 1 of them per short rest, right? Alternatively, especially with Indomitable coming up, maybe you'd rather just bump Constitution or like take something else for utility or support. That'd be fine too, I think. But then yes, at level 15, we'd be a Fighter 9, and that gives us first up the oh-so cool and amazing Tactical Master that, rules as written, we're not getting any benefit from. Man, I really hope that your DM lets your shield have a weapon mastery, because yeah, this feature says that when we attack with a weapon whose mastery we can use, we can replace that with push, sap, or slow instead. And that'd be cool to mix it up if we could. But hey, even if we can't, at least we get the vastly improved Indomitable now, which says that if we fail a save, we can re-roll it with a bonus equal to our fighter level, so 9, right? Once per long rest. And again, coupled with Mage Slayer, especially if we took Berserker 6, maybe getting Resilient Wisdom is overkill, but maybe not. We might need Indomitable for another save, right? At level 16, we'd be a Fighter 10, and that means we get improved combat superiority as a Battle Master, which increases our superiority die to a D10. Not huge, but I'll take it. And then we get 2 more maneuvers, meaning we know 7 now, and that feels awesome. So yeah, go ahead, PYF. But then finally, for us, at level 17, we would be a Fighter 11, and that means we get like extra attack, right? 3 attacks now when we take the attack action. This is the main reason that I wanted to end the build in Fighter, and why I said go like Fighter 5 Barb 2 if you were starting the character at level 7 or higher, because yeah, getting 1 more attack on our turn is about the best thing we can do for our sustained damage. Even for those of us who are using improvised weapons, and so aren't necessarily hitting super duper hard. But that comes just in time for our final damage report. Since last check, we've added 1 more attack on our turn, seen a small bump from a bigger superiority die and a higher proficiency bonus, and gained a ton of really great utility and defensive capabilities as well. But against enemies with a 10 armor class here, on average, we would do 80 damage per round, and against an 18 AC, it would be 76 DPR. And compared to other sustained DPR builds to date at this level, we're again near the bottom of tier 3, but not dead last, so that's encouraging. And hey, you should know that when you use your action surge, you can actually go pretty hard on this build. You could potentially add a superiority die to almost every attack. You get 6 attacks with action surge now, plus a Fire Goliath D10 to every one of those if you wanted. And with Divine Favor and Rage going, you'd be doing like 150 damage in a Nova round, even against a 20 AC enemy. That's not bad for an improvised weapon user who's doing a ton to support and bolster their party, right? Okay. Let's break it on down with some final thoughts here. The tier score for this build, if you take the damage they do against every enemy AC at each of the 4 damage reports and just average it into one big number, we end up with a 49. But it's actually like a 48.61, so it's about 0.4 of a point below that all-day baseline build, which makes me a little bit sad. But I mean, come on, I basically hit my goal of being able to at least keep up damage-wise with that build. So I'm gonna say mission accomplished, basically. And I mean, come on, that baseline build was doing one thing and one thing only: sustainable damage. And they got to use, actual weapons, meaning they could take advantage of more attacks via like the Nick Mastery and Dual Wielder feat, or later big bonus damage from the Great Weapon Master feat. And they didn't have near the same capacity for support and tanking and utility as we do. Forget about the fact that they weren't using any expendable resources like Rage or Action Surge, and so their DPR would have been even better if they were. Totally irrelevant. But yeah, in classic, like, let's take an underpowered mechanic and do our best to optimize it in the name of character concept fashion, we're not just crushing it on the damage charts, but that's okay. Nobody expected us to. I'm happy that we were able to at least keep up with other builds, sticking to our concept. In the end, yeah, I really wish that Wizards of the Coast would have put improvised weapons on like the simple weapon chart in the player's handbook, right? Or said that they count as simple weapons at least, or something. It would have opened up the door for us to do a bunch of other stuff with the build, potentially. I really, really wish that they had weapon masteries. And yeah, one big drawback that doesn't even show up on the spreadsheets here is that similar to subclasses that get built-in innate weapons like the Soul Knife Rogue or the Armor Artificer or the Beast Barbarian, this build is going to fall further behind if and when magic weapons get introduced in your campaign, right? I have to believe, like I've said, that most DMs would allow a magic shield to get the same benefit to hit an attack as they got to their AC. So yeah, a +1 shield might count as a +1 improvised weapon. And if so, I think that would go a long way to helping you feel like you're not restricting yourself too much by trying to follow your dream of playing Captain America in D&D. But yeah, that's definitely something you'd have to get buy-in from your DM on. But yeah, with a little love from your DM, giving you a weapon mastery, letting your damage scale, maybe, sure. I mean, maybe you put a shield spike on your shield and now it can do a little extra damage, stuff like that. We could be a lot more competitive damage-wise, and none of those things feel particularly unreasonable to me. But even if you can't get buy-in from your DM on these things we've talked about, I still love this build. I love that we can be bashing, pushing, and toppling our enemies with some really solid shield to the face damage, while enjoying some fabulous survivability and team leader, team player utility and support to boot. Bolstering allies, improving their damage, helping to keep them safe, directing troops. I think it'd be a ton of fun to play in game, especially if you wanted to play a character who felt cool and fun and powerful, but wasn't necessarily there to steal all the kills in the spotlight, right? Captain Faerûn indeed. I love you guys. Thank you so much for all that you do for me and for this channel. It means the world to me, it really does. I hope that you have a great day and a fantastic week, and if you don't, I sincerely, truly hope that you will not give up and find a reason to hope. Better days are sure to come. I hope that you do good and that you be kind, and that I see you again very soon. But until then, take care. Bye. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming? Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Good question. Regardless of what you think about my country's current politics and leaders, I think you've got to admit that it's a beautiful national anthem, right? Felt fitting, considering a Captain America-inspired build, and that we just celebrated 4th of July a few days ago. As of release, anyway, it's still a week off as I'm recording this. For those who have an opinion, I'd love to know what you think the best rendition of the U.S. national anthem is. I think it's got to be Whitney Houston, number one. Look, number two for me is the Dixie Chicks, though, now known as just the Chicks. I love their harmonies. For our start, let me give a a level 4. Oh yeah, okay. For not having, but plus a D4 from. Well, don't say that. Actually, we would we would against it. My nose keeps itching. Why? We'd be a fighter. I'm gonna say